Hello everyone, this is Ramzan Ali Super from Super English Grammar YouTube channel. I extend a warm and hearty welcome to all of you to this channel. Today this video is going to be a general introduction to complete passive voice tense. So this video is very important for all those who want to learn passive voice tense easily. And in this video we'll look at four essential things that are very important before you start learning passive voice tense. Number one, passive voice definition with example. Number two, the number of total aspects of passive voice. Number three, the general rules of passive voice. And number four, the process of converting an active sentence into passive voice. Now let us look at these four essential things one by one. Number one, passive voice tense definition with example. A passive voice tense is a type of tense in which the subject of the sentence does not perform the action, but rather the subject of the sentence receives the action. For example, a letter is written by John. This is an example of passive voice tense because the subject of the sentence is a letter, and a letter, this subject is not performing the action of writing, but rather it is receiving the action of writing. The writer of this letter is John. So this is an example of passive voice tense in which the subject does not perform the action. Number two, the number of total aspects of passive voice tense. How many aspects the passive voice tense has is a disputed topic. According to traditional English grammar, there are only 8 tenses that can be converted into passive voice tense. They are present indefinite, present continuous, present perfect, past indefinite, past continuous, past perfect, future indefinite, and future perfect. These 8 tenses can be converted into passive voice, and the remaining 4, present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, future perfect continuous, and future continuous, these 4 tenses cannot be converted into passive voice according to traditional English grammar. But on the other hand, there are some modern researchers who have converted all the 12 tenses into passive voice. But we as teachers will teach you all the 12 aspects of passive voice. Number 3, the 5 general rules of passive voice tense. Number 1, interchange of subject and object. Interchange of subject and object means we need to use the object of the sentence in place of subject in passive voice tense. Don't you understand? No problem. Look at these 2 active and passive examples. Number 1, John writes a letter, active voice tense. And number 2, a letter is written by John, passive voice tense. In the active sentence, we are using the subject at first, then we are using the verb, then we are using the object. John writes a letter. John is a subject, writes is a verb, and a letter is an object, right? But while converting this active sentence into passive, we are actually using the object of the sentence, a letter, in place of subject. That is why we are saying a letter is written by John. So we used the object, a letter, in place of subject, John, right? So this is the interchange of subject and object. Rule number 2, change in the main verb. Change in the main verb means that we have to use the third form of the main verb every time in every aspect of passive voice tense. For example, in active sentence we say John writes a letter. Writes is a first form of verb, but in the passive voice tense, when we convert this sentence into passive, we say a letter is written by John. Here we are using the third form of the verb, written, right? So this is the change in the main verb of passive voice. Rule number 3, the use of the preposition by. In the passive voice tense, sometimes we use the real performer of the action At the time we use the preposition by, and then we place the real performer of the action. For example, a letter is written by John. Here in this example, the real performer of the action of writing is John. That is why we are using John after the preposition by. Rule number 4. In the passive voice tense, we have to always use a transitive verb. If a sentence contains a transitive verb, then only it can be converted into passive voice. For example, John writes a letter. This sentence contains a transitive verb, to write. That is why this active sentence can be converted into passive voice. That is why we say a letter is written by John. So to write or written is a transitive verb. Rule number 5. Change in helping verb. The helping verbs of active voice and passive voice tenses are different from one another. The helping verbs, for example, in the present indefinite of active voice are do, does, but the helping verbs in the present indefinite of passive voice are is, am, are. Likewise, the helping verbs of every passive tense are different from those of active voice. We'll prepare a dedicated lecture on those helping verbs of passive voice. And finally, the fourth number important thing, that is the process of converting an active sentence into passive voice. To convert an active sentence into passive voice, we need to follow 4 simple steps. Number 1, we need to place the object in place of subject. We have told you about that earlier. Number 2, we need to use the helping verb of the respective tense before the main verb. Number 3, we need to use the third form of the main verb. And number 4, we need to use the preposition by, and after that the real performer of the action. For example, John writes a letter. This is an active sentence. This sentence can be converted like this: a letter is written by John. So guys, this is a general introduction to the complete passive voice tense. In the upcoming videos, we'll look at the structures and examples of complete passive voice tense. Thank you so much. See you soon in the next video.